Hello, today we'll be going over a game that was played in the rapid format 24-5. And starting off, we get a modern defense, but white chooses not to play e5. E5 might have been a good thing to consider, also sharp. And I think, yeah, it would have been worth it to consider a line similar to this. I don't know. I don't know what black would have done if e5 was played in this exact position, but there's only a few options to do. Not a lot of them make a ton of sense. So really maybe d5 and h5 makes sense, but I think if h5 is played, you get trapped. Surprisingly, play g4, you're not trapped, but things just get very tactical very quickly, and I believe in white's favor. But anyway, we move on. Black is now castled. e5 is still good. It just gets less good the more prepared black is. And e5, it's not forced here, but I think it's a good idea to play, so well played. Just checking to see if the knight is trapped. It is not because this bishop can take the pawn attacking the knight. Maybe h3 into g4 should have been good because the knight has no good squares to go to. This knight on h5 is terribly placed. If there's a bishop on f4 or g3, then we could talk, but the bishop doesn't go there. White doesn't do the pawn moves. I think something to consider next time. I think castling along here might have really been a very spicy game. Just depends on what kind of player you are. Yeah, I'm not sure what was accomplished. I don't think this is too weakening. And yeah, maybe, yeah, I think a kingside attack would be really good, but I think it should have started with the pawn. But this is not terrible. We've got a small pin here. I don't think black should have taken. I think this just helps white make a massive kingside attack. I mean, just look how many pieces are pointed over here. Yep, black realizes the danger, but does not act accordingly. So what they did here was move into a pin. Sorry. Since this pawn is pinned, this knight is hanging, so they moved into a pin. They should have recognized more danger, but maybe activated another knight, maybe try to open up the f file that the queen is on with f6, but ultimately they dropped the knight. Good move by black, just getting in their knight, and white does a good job of getting out of danger. Drops a pawn, but I don't know if that was a good pawn to take. It does get your queen out of danger, get white's queen out of danger, but this kind of allows more complications. I'm actually not sure. This looks really tough. It's just like white hasn't castled. I think maybe castling first would be pretty strong. You can always take on d5 after you castle. You can also prepare, yeah, a nice intermezzo move maybe would have been queen g3, threatening some really a good aggression here. But instead, free pawn. Why not? Up a knight, up a pawn. That sounds pretty good to me. And unfortunately, black starts getting a little counterplay here. Their knight's very actively placed. Rooks are very well placed. White has two bishops and of course is up a piece, but now we're just up a piece and not extra pawns. White's wanting to liquidate, but I don't know if cxd3 was great. Maybe the rook, and you could have traded rooks. I don't see any pins, but I think trading another pair of rooks would have been good. This pawn is so easily defended that I'm not sure it was worth doing this instead of activating one of your rooks. It's just so easy to bully this. Black has a lot of dark square control. I know their pieces are also on dark squares, but a lot of dark square control here. And yeah, drops a pawn and tries to make some counterplay, some counterplay on the king side. But there's just so many things to watch out for. And it really does look like black is trying their best to really put some squeeze on. Black is protecting their pieces. White's pieces just don't control good squares. This would be a good square, but it does attack the rook. But this rook, I don't really think is too contended. for space. Maybe if d5 was played, but I don't see why. This isolated pawn is very troublesome. It was made right here. If it had been made with the exchange of one more rook, it could have been a little bit better, but because black does have an isolated pawn as well. So white has a huge isolated pawn, and the game is slipping away just a little bit. I'm not really sure what happens here. Yeah, nothing much. This needed just a little bit more preparation, but white moves to a half-open file with a very heavily defended piece, and it's not too easy to attack it since white just doesn't control a ton of squares right now. Unfortunately, yeah, white's bishop is trapped, and when did that happen exactly? That happened a long time ago with the inclusion of d4. I know it looked like a shoring up move and potentially had the idea of trading, like get out of jail free card, but not having the control of the dark squares without g3, the dark squares definitely seem to be controlled by the black pieces. And yeah, after, I guess it was trapped now, but this sequence was sort of forced. But actually, sorry, here, instead of saving the pawn, that was the last time to, yeah, just because the dark square weakness again. Good, try to trade. And yeah, here it is all over for the dark squared bishop on the white pieces. Might as well try to get what you can out of it. And we have a relatively even game for a human. I think white's position a little bit better. This pawn is pretty well advanced. Gonna have to fight pretty hard, but I think white is winning here to a human eye. And if trades, yeah, just play it out. I don't have the rest of the game. I'm just curious what would happen, and I'll go through with an engine here just in a second. I think the first thing a human would do is activate your king, try to bring him in. Now I'm kind of just shooting from the hip here, but I am wondering how white loses this. So you have to keep the square open, because if you do, you shut out your own king from getting through and have to go all the way over there, while black has a much easier time. I guess it doesn't. The same thing. Maybe this is good. You shut out the black king. These squares are all taken. So, but unfortunately, it really does look like black is closer to his pieces. Oops. Let's just keep playing a little bit here. Try to shut down that side. Yeah, I'm curious how white ended up losing this game, because it does look pretty solid here. Just a black king on the 7th row, unable to get in except for this tiny corner. Yeah, they just can't reach in time. So yeah, I am just very curious though. I can see why white found it difficult to make a ton of progress. I can't really say off the top of my head what to do here. Because the rule of thumb is to have your king in front of your pawn before you push the pawn. So if these are actually a little bit further back, get your king in front of them, it would be a little bit easier. But just as an exercise, I am curious. Looks like black is out of moves and start having a dance, so you can shoulder check. But it's all about who has opposition. Right here, white has opposition. Black has to move, but they don't have any good moves. So segueing, if you will. And there's no way to keep this pawn. So, well, thanks for joining me. Until next time.